Hey guys, what is up? My name is Kaylee. Welcome back to my channel. I'm a little bit late on the wrap up, but here we are. May ended, and that means that another month of reading is now behind us, and we are about to head into my May wrap up. In May, I participated in 3 different readathons. The month-long readathon was the Asian readathon, then I participated in the bingoathon as well as the panelathon. I will have all of those linked down below. Even though they're in the past, they'll probably happen again, so you might as well make yourself aware of their existence. That said, I had a decent reading month considering I felt like I was very slumpy, 1, and 2, didn't spend a whole lot of time reading. I read 6 novels and 8 graphic novels / manga, so without further ado, let's get into them. Now you guys know how I like to do this. I like to do the graphic novels first and then the novels, and I go from my least favorite to my most favorite. So we're gonna start with the graphic novels and manga. I read 7 of these during the panelathon and 1 of them outside of that scope to get out of a reading slump. I had 2 2 stars, 4 4 stars, and 2 5 stars, which is not bad, except for the 2 stars, so let's get into those. Up first, it was hard to distinguish which of the 2 I enjoyed least, so the order of these 2 don't really matter, but we'll go with Dull Margaret by Jim Broadbent. This was like a horror novel. The art was pretty, I can't even say it was like excellent, but it was interesting. For those that don't know or didn't see my vlogs, Jim Broadbent is in Harry Potter and in Game of Thrones. In Harry Potter, he is Professor, God, I'm doing it again, Professor. I don't know, he's the one that tells Tom Riddle about the Horcruxes in the memory, and I can't remember his professor name. In any case, he wrote the book. It wasn't very good. There wasn't a whole lot of dialogue. It's about like a witch that has no friends, and I don't really know what the point was. It was a little depressing. I read it in like 15 minutes, not lying, so that's all I'm gonna say. It was 2 stars because it wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, but it really didn't have much of a point. My next 2 star is a manga. Now, when the hosts released the panelathon information, they each picked a graphic novel or a manga that they suggested that you could read during the panelathon. Jesse's pick was Blackbird Volume 1. Now, they intended it to be the graphic novel Blackbird, 1 word, and before they corrected and said that's what it was, there was also Blackbird manga, 2 words, by Kanoko Sakurakuji, and this was awful. So know that I did read the other Blackbird and it had a lot better rating than this did, but I did, because I picked it up, I decided I'm just gonna go ahead and read it. This is about a girl who has always been able to like interact with little demon presences, and they've basically been, aside from like causing havoc in her life, they've been pretty backseat in terms of like hurting her, but now suddenly she's, what's the word I'm looking for? She's like a victim to them. They come after her because I guess now that she's like of age, a demon benefits from marrying her or eating her or killing her. They get like more powerful because of who she is, because she can see these little demons, and like the human demons are the ones that want to come after her for power. So it turns out that like her childhood best friend, the only person that believed that she saw these things, comes back into her life, but it's because he is a demon and he wants to marry her. And by want, I mean he's forcing it. Like, you need to marry me because I will protect you, otherwise people are gonna kill you. And it is super sexual assaulty. It is super like, it was uncomfortable to read because he's like forcing her to be with him, and he's like blackmailing her, and another demon comes in, like the popular guy at school that everybody wants to date comes into the picture, but turns out he's a demon too. And this poor girl is just like an object that, I don't know, I'm never gonna pick up another one again. It was pretty disappointing. I always kind of give in my wrap-ups like a little bit of a pass for the way women are portrayed in older manga, but this is like not, it doesn't, I can't. I don't recommend it. That's the end of that. The only reason it's 2 stars is because I did like the art and concept of the manga itself is pretty good, minus the whole like, I'm gonna force you against your will to not only sleep with me and like do things, like there's like a whole like rapey scene. I don't even know if it actually goes all the way, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Like she's passed out and wakes up and was like, what did we do? Don't bother. Need a coffee break after that one. Next is my 3-star manga. It's a standalone contemporary, and that is This One Summer by Jillian Tamaki and Mariko Tamaki. They are sisters, one illustrated, one wrote. It's a little slice of life about 2 girls that in the summer they go to like summer homes with their families, and that's their only friendship exists during summer when they're at these homes by a beach. And it's kind of like, I can't really say coming of age because we only follow them for the one like month of the year, but it's definitely a slice of life story about being a 12-year-old girl. Like there are crushes, there's talk about sexuality, there's talk about growing boobs, there's talk about like that kind of stuff. And they're learning their relationship with life, I guess, in that, you know, they overhear a bunch of older girls that are like drinking and they're like 16 or so, calling each other sluts, and so they start using the word slut, or one of the girls does. It's that kind of thing, like where they're just kind of learning to interact in society as their own individual selves. I saw a lot of critique on Goodreads about it not really having a point, and I don't really agree with that. I think if you look at it, as I said, as a slice of life, where it's just this 1 month out of an entire life that you get a little bit of a story of these girls. It's fascinating, and I feel like maybe I connected to it because I too had a cottage growing up that we used to visit up in Canada, and I related to some of it in that, like, you know, they go to this convenience store that's on this little land and they pick out a movie and they pick out candy, and my dad used to drive us across the bay in a boat to this little convenience store off the shore that we pick a movie and we pick candy and we go back home, and it was very nostalgic for me. I actually really hated the cottage growing up because, one, I like to sit inside and read, which wasn't something that I was praised for in my household, but also we never had air conditioning, and like August, even in Canada, is super hot, so I was miserable almost the whole time. But looking back on it as an adult, like there's some great memories there, and this kind of pulled those forward for me. So I ended up giving it 3 stars because I think that more could have happened. There's an underlying story about the girl and her family that was very poignant and heavy, and I think they could have explored it a little bit more. I don't want to give it away because it is like a turn in the plot that you don't get to till near the end. But again, it could have been explored more. But otherwise, I think it was a pretty quick and decent read. So I spent that whole time calling it a 3-star, but it was a 4-star. I gave it 4 stars. I'm an idiot. I just looked at my notes. I gave it a 4-star, but it's probably closer to like a 3.5, 4-star, which is why I said 3. Moving on, I read Descendant Volume 6 by Jeff Lemire. 4-star. I think the whole series was a 4-star for me. Jeff Lemire is one of my favorite graphic novelists. He's written Sweet Tooth, obviously Descender, what else have I read by him? Regardless, this was the end of the Descender series. So 6 was the finale, and then there's a spin-off that comes from it called Descender that just came out, and I haven't read the first volume yet. I think it was out in April, but I'm looking forward to it. The way that Descender wrapped up was great. I absolutely love the art in this graphic novel series. It's watercolor, it's beautiful, very stunning. Some full pages were just, I just stared at it without like moving on for a while because it's just such a beautiful graphic novel. But it did get a little bit like, you're in volume 6 and you've been kind of exploring the same thing for all 6 volumes, which is a post-machine apocalypse war against the world, where there's like scrappers and machines that made it out, and then there's like this one giant robot race, is what we'll call it, that have like awoken. And you're following this one little robot boy named Tim 21, and he is looking for his human companion when they were kids. Well, Tim is still a kid because he's a robot companion, but Andy at this point is the kid he's looking for, who is now an adult. And so the end is very nice. Like Andy was one of my favorite characters, and in the end you find out how he'll work into the spin-off. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Jeff Lemire did with the next set in this world. Also, I was really excited to find out my next 4-star read was the book that Jessie had intended initially, which is Blackbird Volume 1 by Sam Humphries, and Hoopla had it, so I was able to read it. The art is stunning. If you guys have been here a while, you know that I like really bright and vivid graphic novels, even though I wear mostly black. And this was no exception. The art was phenomenal. The storyline, the reason it's not a 5-star for me is that the storyline was a little all over the place. Like, you're hopping from one fantastical moment to the next, and like, it was almost too rushed is what I would say in the end. Like, the storyline is really cool in that a girl, I can't remember the name, like what she called the entities, but the main character that you follow sees these otherworldly entities and no one believes her. They think she's crazy, and she and her sister lose their mother. Because of that, the main character is kind of like fallen into this depression where she works as a bartender, but she also like just spends all day popping pills and being drunk, and she lives with her sister like bumming on her couch, and they don't see eye to eye because of that. And her sister keeps telling her like, you're crazy, none of these things exist, what have you. But of course they do exist, and it's kind of the tangled web as to what happens to this girl once she realizes that she's not crazy and she gets pulled into this other world. Very fascinating, but all the little synopsises of like when she's seen these like deities or something, I don't know what to call them, these other things happen really fast, and then when she's in the world it's like, again, boom, boom, boom moments. And I just think that it could have been fleshed out a little bit more story building wise, and I would have given it a 5-star. It could be, I always put this as like a note, that it could be that I read it on my phone. I feel like when I read a graphic novel digitally, I don't get the same out of it. I try not to read graphic novels on my phone anymore. It was still really, really good. I recommend it if you've liked things like Zodiac Star Force, if you like Saga even. I think it's worth checking out. My next 4-star is like a 4.5 stars, so close to a 5-star. I'll explain why it didn't hit that 5-star mark in a minute, but that is Orange, the Complete Collection Volume 2 by Ichigo Takano. If you remember, I absolutely loved, just a Band-Aid bookmark in there, the first complete collection. Like, I gave a lot of warnings then, and it doesn't change now in the second, but it has a lot to do with depression and suicide and guilt surrounding survivors of suicide. There's just a lot. If any of that kind of doesn't jive with you, I wouldn't check it out. But if you can handle that kind of subject matter, this is a really, really great manga series. The second one this is why it wasn't a 5-star for me. It wrapped up, and then this much of it, I don't know if you can see very well. This is Orange Volume 2, and this is an insert of a completely unrelated story by the same author. So here I am like reading and reading and reading and wondering what twists and turns we're gonna come to when I'm like around here, only to find out that that was the end, the true end. And it really was jarring. So that in and of itself knocked off a 1/2 star. I don't recommend doing that, publishers, because it really, really messed with me, which made it much shorter than the first one. As you can see, much shorter than the first one. So it was good. It was a wonderful secondary to what we started in the first complete collection, but I didn't really enjoy the ending. I didn't really like how it happened, and I feel like it could have explored a lot more the idea between the two timelines that the book created, because it's about a group of friends, and one of them is new to the friend group, but he eventually dies, and they find out through the first volume that it was an intentional death, not an accident. The main character gets a letter from herself 10 years in the future telling her, like, these are the things I want you to change so that our friend doesn't kill himself. She starts changing the things that she does in her present day to try and help prevent what's going to happen. So you do break off in these two timelines. There's the future person that has written these letters and the friendships there, and then there's the present person and the path that she's trying to take now. So you've got these two alternate timelines, and I think it could have been explored a lot more in the second volume than it was, and for that I gave it 4.5 stars. But you really fall in love with the characters. They're so individual and fun. I like how they looked out for each other and what they meant to each other, and that they were always like cheering each other on. Even the crankiest one like really cared about these people and knew them very well. And for that, I will never forget this manga series, and I probably will reread it in the future, and it has become one of my favorites easily. So my first 5-star manga was Princess Jellyfish, the Omnibus Volume 3. I'm really starting to love this series. I checked out the first one on a whim, like I was just picking up random first volumes of mangas to see if there's anything out there I hadn't really heard anything about, wanted to check out. Princess Jellyfish was in that pile. I had a couple duds, but this was not. I think I gave the first volume 4 stars and probably the second volume as well. Don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. I'm really loving it. Like, I really the main male character he cross-dresses, which isn't accepted by his father, who is high up in like politics, and like he might even be the prime minister, I can't remember. It's quality. His family is like rich and important, and so like he, being a guy, it's frowned upon that he likes to dress up in dresses and wigs and makeup and yada yada. But his character is just so great and complex, and at this point he's trying to save this girl and her friends that they're what are called neets in society, which are like people that don't work and they just kind of live off their parents, and they're recluses, like they stay inside. They're basically borderline agoraphobic, and they don't really like society as it stands. So he befriends them, and all of them think that he is a woman, otherwise he wouldn't be allowed to hang out with them because they hate men. Except the one main girl in the group who knows his secret. Together they're trying to save the building that these women live in from being sold to a developer who wants to tear it down and build up like luxury apartments. That's really the main focus of the story, but the relationships that are coming from this and the way that people are changing and growing, coming out of their shells but still staying who they are as people. Like, they all have their own obsessions. One loves trains, one's obsessed with this like specific war, another one is, the main character is obsessed with jellyfish. They all like are starting to grow as people while remaining who they are, and I really appreciate that in a story. And I just really love the characters, and it's getting to be really fun. I obviously will carry on with this series. I think there's like 11 books maybe, so, of the omnibus volumes, so I'm pretty early in on the series, but I can't wait to see what's in store. And last but certainly not least, my 5-star top of the month graphic novel manga wise is Death Note Volume 6. I finally finished it. It is over. It is done. I said in my vlogs, the reason that the series started to get less impressive to me is that it just drags on a little bit too long. It gets very complicated, and thus it's a little convoluted and complex, so it starts to get a little draggy in like 4, 5, and 6, because you're like, okay, I've told you this synopsis a million times if you've been here, but it's about a Death Note book that falls into the hands of our main character Light, who then thinks of himself as God and starts using it to kill people in society and make like the ultimate perfect world. Now, with that notebook comes shinigamis, death gods, that follow them around like you're haunted by that shinigami that owns the notebook. And in the last 3 volumes, the shinigamis play like a back role as opposed to the forefront that they're in the first 3, which I realized in the last half I really liked that part of the book, and because it was more background than the last half, it was less fun for me, because it gets a lot more police versus Light, trying to outwit each other. It's not that I couldn't keep up, it was just that I was like, alright already. He's gotten away with a lot of stuff, and while it all wraps in really well and it was plotted well, it was like, get on with the show. Again, this is one of those mangas where like women are kind of treated as accessories, so be aware of that if you do go into it, that the main women in this book either end up dead, because a lot of people die in this, or they're just treated so poorly, objectified, what have you. And the end was very interesting, because there's an end and then there's kind of like a secondary moment where you're following some of the other characters that have theories about what happened. It was a little strange to end it that way because it left me wondering, and I think that's probably the point, is to like leave you wondering what the truth of it was, because there's just so much complexity in the storyline. And it doesn't make sense, and I can't go into any more than that without spoiling the series, so that's what you get for that. 5-star. I'm glad to have finished it. I'm glad to have read it. It is still one of my favorite manga series of all time. Death Note. All my wrap-ups are like 40 minutes long because I don't shut the fuck up. So now we're in my novel portion of the wrap-up, of which I read 6.5 because I did check out the Asian Readathon group book, which was 1,000 Beginnings and Endings, edited by Ellen O, a collection of short stories, all by Asian authors, and my loan was up, and now I'm back in line for it, so I read about half of it. I think it was about 60%. So it's not a DNF, but I didn't finish it in the month, but when I get it, I will finish it. I just wanted to say that because otherwise I completed all the Asian Readathon challenges, as well as the panelathon challenges, as well as the bingoathon challenges. So I just wanted to put that out there. It was really good. I was telling every story, giving it stars, so at the end I can have like an overall cumulative, but I'd say if I have to estimate, it's probably about a 4-star right now. That said, let's get into it. I had 1 2-star, 4 4-stars, and 1 5-star, so it was an average month. My 2-star was a book I listened to an audiobook, and that is Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. Now, a lot of people really love this series, and a lot of people say that the first book isn't great, and if you carry on, you'll like it. This is my 2nd book by Tahereh Mafi, and I just think maybe she's not for me. I follow her on Instagram, I love her style, I love her personality, but I just think her writing is not, not my cup of tea. Because Shatter Me was, at first, kind of funny to listen to because I didn't take it seriously. And then I got like bored, and then it just was too much. The romance in it was overt and like overtook the story. It didn't really seem what it sold as, which I guess is like dystopian, and the magic aspect of it wasn't really fleshed out enough that I felt like I connected to it on any level. And a lot of it just didn't, it felt full of cliches, and it was mostly focused on romance. And I'm like really behind the curve on this. Like Shatter Me has been out for a long time, and people across Booktube have talked about it ad nauseum, and I'm not going to go further into it than that. It wasn't for me. I won't carry on in the series. That's it. Next on the docket is my first 4-star, and I struggle between a 3.5 and a 4-star. Ultimately I went with a 4-star, but I think it's me being generous, quite honestly. I really highly anticipated this book. I got a special editions from Goldsboro, which was limited. It was number 95 out of 500, signed by both authors. That is Aurora Rising by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I went to the event that Jay did for this book. It was super exciting, and he's so interesting, and this is the special edition. Obviously I have the regular one, that's the one that he signed at the event, and I have another copy I will likely be doing a giveaway for, so keep an ear out for that. I'm waiting to get in my copy of Memento, because if I did it correctly I should get 2 copies of the novella, and then I'll do the giveaway. So that's that. Keep an eye out for that. But this was okay. I enjoyed it while I was reading it, but I don't think that it was anything mind-blowing. I think that it was kind of cliche at times. I felt like all of the characters, while fascinating, kind of dealt with everything that they encountered with sarcasm and wit. Like even the most serious person kind of dealt with things weirdly. I don't know, one of the things that really irked me was how much information was drilled into the reader's head. Like the main alpha, the leader of the squad, Tyler, has dimples. And I'll never forget that he had dimples because they said it every 20 fucking pages. Dimples that killed. He could do anything he wanted because of his dimples. Every girl swooned because of his dimples. Even guys swooned because of his dimples. Like, we get it. Dude had dimples. It was like that. Every character had that kind of, there was like something about them that like they really wanted us to know, not forget. And it got a little bit in the way of the narrative. It felt a lot like Illuminae, and I think that listening to the audiobook will be great because if it's anything like the Illuminae audiobooks, because it is full cast, it's going to be fascinating to listen to. And I think that the Illuminae files really benefit from the audiobooks and reading it that way. It's a sci-fi space adventure about a squad that gets sent out to do one thing, but really the secret is that the stowaway they have, Aurora, is way more important than anyone knew, except for the people that sent them on this mission. And a lot of stuff happens because of that, because of the stowaway. I mean, it was fascinating. It was good, but it did start to there's a part in the middle where I felt like we were in it forever, and it wasn't really necessary to stay in that one mission for as long as they did. And the very ending of it, like there's like a twist, but I saw the twist coming literally from the very beginning, and I think that's more a product of knowing Jay and Amy's writing so well that I kind of see where they're going. But I say that and also just read God's Grave like a month ago and was shocked to shit. So your mileage may vary. It was pretty good. I think if you are a big fan of Amy and Jay's writing, you'll like this, but I can't guarantee it's love. My next 4-star is Warcross by Marie Lu. I didn't expect to like this as much as I did, but I really, really liked it. Definitely, if you've read Ready Player One and you like that, I'm sure it gets a lot of comparison to that by other people that have read it. But the comparison really is that there's a virtual reality with a game that you can enter and be part of, and the main character unwittingly becomes one of the main people within this Warcross game. So that's where the similarities to Ready Player One comes in, but it's its own thing. And I think the reason that it stuck with me and is a 4-star is because there is this underlying commentary about technology and its place in society and how we become so reliant on it that when we're taken advantage of as a society by the creators of this kind of technology that we live with, we just don't care because we're like, we need our phones, we need our Facebook, we need it's everyday life. So when we sign terms and services, we're like, whatever, because we're going to use it anyway, right? And I think that that's something that Marie Lu kind of put into the undercurrent of the story. It's the part that stuck with me the most, is this commentary. I'm really excited to read Wildcard, which is the sequel to this, though I have heard that it doesn't really do this book justice, so I'd like to read it and see what I think, but I'm also 23rd in line for it, so it's gonna be a while. It was a sleeper for me. I really didn't expect it to be what it was for me. It definitely is a little cliche in the writing style, and the plot points that happen were a little predictable. It wasn't anything mind-blowing and new. Reading it and not having high expectations because of that, it was fun. And again, that underlying storyline was kind of poignant and unexpected. I had a really weird reading month in that I really struggled to get into books last month, and then even if I got into them, I'd reach a point where I just didn't want to read them anymore, and I was forcing myself to finish. And the next 2 books on my list both fall into that category, and they're both highly anticipated reads for me, so it was a little disappointing. This next book was close to being a 3-star almost through all of it, but I really appreciated the end, and in the end it is a debut novel, and all of those things considered, I did give it a 4-star. That is Descendant of the Crane by Joan He. Again, debut novel. It is about a princess, Hasina, and her father is the king, and he dies, and she is convinced that it wasn't of natural causes as it's been said and claimed and decreed. So she tries to seek out the answers as to why he died, how he died, who did it, why. In doing so, she's kind of performing an act of treason, even though she's now the queen. She's thrust into this position of power that she never wanted, that she's not good at, and she's doing all these treasonous things to try and find out why her dad died. It's longer than necessary, in my opinion. There's a lot of things that go on, and the pacing is weird in that things either happen really too fast or too slow. And I think that's, it's, as I said, a debut novel, so pacing and tone are some of the things I think that debut novels struggle with the most because you're still new at it, and you don't really have as much feedback yet. There are scenes where Hasina's doing something in a room with someone and then suddenly she's somewhere else entirely, and there's not a page break or a chapter break. It's just she's doing this and now she's doing this. And it really made the book suffer in those scenes, because I'd be like, wait a second, is that me? No, it's definitely the book. But I thought it was unique. I thought that there was a lot of things within this book in terms of the magic and the reasoning behind the king's death that I haven't really seen in a lot of work before. Very fascinating. I was sad while reading it that I wasn't really into it, and then I just sat myself down and I think I read like 200 pages in a day to finish it. And I was like, okay, I'm liking it now. So 4-star, not the strongest of 4 stars, but still pretty good. My next 4-star, the highest 4-star, the final 4-star is another book that I started. I read about 110 pages of it and then I put it aside and I didn't pick it up till the end of the month. And then I ended up loving it. So that is The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. I had really high expectations for this and it almost met it. But again, it was a pacing issue. I feel like it really drew me in to the story, which is about a necromancer that finds out she's a necromancer when her brother is killed, and at his funeral, she raises him from the dead. In this world, everybody wears a heart glass that kind of tells their like emotions and things like that, and some people can read it, and people have powers. There's a variety of things that people can do. But necromancy and being a bone witch is like rare and frowned upon by some people, and like other people are scared of it, and she has to go and be like an apprentice to learn to be one of these like high necromancers. So she takes her brother that she's resurrected and they go to this other place where she can learn to hone her skills. It's not just learning the powers of necromancy, you also have to like learn all these other things for society, like to dance and to sing, a variety of things, fighting, etc. Wouldn't be a fantasy novel if you didn't have to learn 8 zillion things to be the person that you're meant to be. But that journey, like that being there and having to learn those things and the societal part of it took me out of the book for a while. It really did. I had to force myself to pick this book up for a while. That said, I know, that sounds like I didn't really love it, and then I gave it a 4-star. Again, I sat down and I was like, just read it. So I finished a good portion of it in a day. And in the end, I really liked it. You're also seeing the perspective from like a future person telling the story to someone else. So you'll get that at the end of every chapter. There's a little piece from that future perspective that kept the story going and moving, because they're like little blurbs in like relatively short chapters. And I'm thankful for that because that's how I forced myself to read it. But I really, really liked how this book ended, and I do look forward to getting the second book in the series and reading it, but it's not like a priority. So that's kind of why it fell on the 4-star spectrum. I liked the characters, I like the foreshadowing of what might happen in the future, and again, the end was pretty interesting. So 4-star, know that it could slow down in the middle for you if you tend to feel the same way I do about books. Again, I guess I just struggled with books that had pacing that I wasn't really a fan of this month, so. Let's move on to my 5-star, which was a very surprising 5-star for me. And that is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nunn. I checked this out from the library because I really didn't expect to like it. I loved it. I buddy read this with Jamie over at Jamie Reads, and we had a really good time, and I think we both gave it 5 stars in the end. It was just enjoyable. Like, there's a trigger warning page in the front that literally tells you, like there's a foreword, that this book is full of sexual assault and violence, and I appreciate that they tell you that in the beginning, because that is what it's about. It's about, there's 3 castes of people. The lowest is human, and then there's demon human, and then there's demon, and the demon king, they're like half animal if you're demon, is like a bull demon, and he every year gets this like band of women, this harem of women that are his concubines. And some people in society like grow up to be this. It's an honor for them and their families. And other people get pushed into it that don't want to. But generally speaking, like who really wants to be like the king's concubine? Not really anybody. But that's just how society works. So yeah, he gets to like pick and choose amongst these women who he sleeps with whenever he wants to. And the main character is one of the latter, which is that she wanted nothing to do with this. She lives on the outskirts of town, but because of who she, like her eyes and some other asshole in the kingdom that wants favor by the king, she gets taken and brought into this cast of women. And it's about kind of reclaiming yourself as a woman who's forced into this position that she doesn't want to be in. There's a female-female romance. I really enjoyed it. I think that what happens in the end to wrap this story up makes perfect sense for the characters, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. With the next book that comes out, I believe November, the arcs are starting to make their way around. It blindsided me. I think I went in with really low expectations, and I don't know if it was the buddy read that made it the 5-star that it was, or if I just genuinely absolutely loved it. Either way, it got 5 stars for me, and it was my favorite book of the month, so that's it. That is my epically long, as always, wrap up. You know, I can't do anything in under 30 minutes. It was a decent reading month. I had a really good time reading a backlog of Asian books that I have been intending to get to. It was a good excuse to get them done. Slowly working through my TBR cart. Thank you for being here, guys. Thank you for always sitting through these epically long wrap-ups that I can't stop talking through. I really appreciate it. Let me know if you've read any of these down below, what you thought, what was your favorite book of the month. I hope to see you guys in my next one. Like if you've liked this video, subscribe if you are new here and want to see more content from me. All my social media links are down below. You can find me on Goodreads, Instagram, and Twitter. Hope you're having a great day and that June is treating you well. Bye. My camera turned off and I don't know when it stopped.